Hello, Dr. Liu. This is Brett Sallee,
My name is Ibrahim Hakim.
and this is our demo for part one of our joke website. So before we show you our source code, I'm just going to run it so you can actually see that we have everything working. So when we run the project, we start off with our initialize button. So we named our website Punchlines because this is the punchline of a joke. So if we press initialize, our output down here shows that we called the action initialized database, and we see that users initialized, jokes initialized, reviews initialized, and comments initialized. So then we can log in here. If I just type a bunch of nonsense and log in, we get an error because the username or password is invalid. Or I can press this button or this button to go to a sign up page. And if I try to sign up with a username that already exists and type a bunch of nonsense, this page we do still have to add the password confirmation and an email confirmation. So if I register, that username is already taken. So I'm going to go back to login and log in with John and pass 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can log in. And this is what we have started for part two to show our home page, and these links up here will be like my profile and my favorite jokes and my friends and stuff like that. So here is our code for our JSPs. So this is our initialize button, and the way I have it set up is I don't have any styling in here. I'm taking web development or web technology right now, so I decided to use some of that and implement what I've learned in this project. So we have our body and our navigation bar, and on the initialize page there's nothing on it, it's just the title of our website, and we print out initialize punchlines, and then we have a button. So the button, once submitted here, will send an action initialize database to the control servlet, and the method is post. So then our login page is very similar. We have our body and our nav bar, and it still only says punchlines, and then it also has the sign up button that I showed earlier on the right. And again, we have our forms with our buttons. So if we log in, it will send login here to the servlet, or if we press the sign up button, it will send sign up to the servlet. And then the other things we have in here, like these containers and stuff, are just kind of to make it look pretty. That's what this box is here. And our register page is very similar to our login page. We have forms to enter each username, and this statement here will actually assign that username to an object called user. And then we also, I forgot to mention on the login page, we have our register error. So if there's an error registering like the username's already taken, this won't appear, but elsewhere in our code we have, that we'll show later, we have it to set attribute, so a new error message will appear saying that the username is taken, or if you're logging in, that it's the incorrect username or password. And then finally here we have our CSS page, and this just is a cascading style sheet just to make sure that all of our pages that we create, all of our JSPs, look the same. And it's all of our configuration in here for our frames and our containers, our headers, the body, the main, configuration for the button, and for the button to change color when we hover over it. All of our nav bar is up here, and again, the nav bar will change color if you hover over it. So now I'm going to pass it over to Ibrahim to show you what he did with all of our database objects and classes.
Okay, hi Dr. Lu. So here is the common DAO. Let me actually show you the user DAO first, because the other ones are similar. So here we have the basic SQL and Java exceptions imported. We have our domain user imported. Right here we have the servlet and the connection, and also the result set and the prepare statement to connect the servers. Mainly, this function right here, connect function, is what allows to access and connect. So if the connection is null or is closed, then it'll open it. Right here, the specific URL is what allows us to connect to the user, and our user is root, and the password is right here.
And we changed that to per your instructions. So it's like that just so we can connect to our databases on each of our computers. And so we changed it to John and pass 1, 2, 3, 4 per your instructions in the project document.
And right here, this function we have listing all users, which allows us to create a statement. And right here in the result set, has the .next, which actually allows you to loop to the while loop, allowing the username to get a username, password, first name, all of them to become variables. Then we initialize right here to make a new user by listing all what we just listed right here. Use the username, password, first name, and then we add the user. Then for safety and precaution, we close it and disconnect. Right here, this disconnect function will close it with the uh, with the try catch erring of the connecting. If it's not null and is closed, then it will close it after those functions. So right here, this line right here checks if there's a table. If it does exist, then we will not create a new table. But this line right here, creator user TB, will create the tables listed over here. We have a Boolean statement which checks if this is greater than 0, the amount of strings right here greater than 0, which it is, so it's true, that therefore it will create a table. We have insert users, which is hard code for the amount of the ID, password, username of the clients for our website. They're all hard coded here, all 10 of them. Again, it checks if there's a table, then it will close, and it returns whatever the value is. So the value is there is a table here, so the table created and the user interest will return true. So this function right here is checking if the username passed from here equals another username. If that is so, then it will print out the username is not available and return true, meaning that you cannot have another username with the same username log in or sign up. Otherwise, if that's not true, it will return false, meaning that a duplicate username has not been found, which is what we want. Then we have user validation, and this basically checks to see if if the username and the password are in a database. If it is, it will return true. Otherwise, it will return false. Then this function here is us allowing us to insert a new user. And then same concept of the boolean. If there is a user, it will return true because it's greater than 0. And then we close. Deleting, similar concept to inserting. We just delete from the user TB where username is whatever it was inserted. Then right here we delete, check the username, delete it, and then we close over here, and then we finally return the row deleted. Okay, I think I messed up.
Sorry. So, hi Dr. Liu, this is Brett again. So, based on our user DAO, we also created the comments, joke, and review DAO. They're all pretty much the same. They just create our tables and hard code some users in, and they have an insert and delete statement, or function, sorry. But I showed you all of our JSPs, but I forgot to show you our control servlet that handles those JSPs and all the requests. So in our servlet, we have global variables for each of our DAOs, and then we initialize all of those. We have our do post to actually handle the requests from the servlet, and then our do get, which is when you get a post, it sends it to the do get. So we have an action that it takes in, which is the action is from the submit buttons on our JSPs. So if we press our initialize database button, it calls the function initialize database. If we have open login, all this does is opens our login page. If we have login, this calls a function user login to actually log in the user. Sign up opens our sign up page or our register page here. And then register actually calls a function to register a new user. And then home takes us to our home page. So initialize database is pretty straightforward. Ibrahim already explained to you our initialize user table, and we also have initialize joke table, review table, comments table. So we initialize all those tables from our DAO files, and then the dispatcher sends us to the login page. And on the login page, we have the dispatcher that can now request and get parameters. So we get the username and the password that is entered. And we call the user validation function that Ibrahim demoed. And if that function returns true, so it's a validated user, then it will take them to the home page. Otherwise, there's a login error and it's an invalid username or password, and it'll redirect them back to the login page where they can try again. Our user registration function does the same thing as the login function. It gets all the information that's entered in the page using the dispatcher. So we get our username, password, first name, and then it checks if duplicate username is false. So if it's false, we create a new user, we insert the user, and we go home. If this is true, meaning they entered a duplicate username, then we say this username is already taken, and then the dispatcher will send them back to the register page. I think that is all we have for you for part 1, and thank you, and we're looking forward to implementing part 2.